every engineer that you hire is going to do different things. They might work for you for a while. They might work for somebody else. They might grow inside the corporation. And when you hire someone, you have to make sure that they're going to be around for a long time. You're going to invest in them. You're going to train them. You're going to teach them all the secrets. You can pick them in the company mission and values, and making sure that you're hiring someone who isn't just good at typing out JavaScript on the keyboard, TypeScript, Go or Rust or whatever, but that really wants to be at your company and wants to be there through its ups and downs and through its pivots and its changes.
Welcome to the Team Amplifier podcast. I'm your host, Byron Summerdahl. Here you'll be inspired by industry leaders who build flourishing tech teams. Stay tuned and prepare to be amplified.
3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, I'm here with Michelle Floyd. Michelle is a rocket scientist turned software CTO and actually also a ski instructor. Next time I'm out there towards Lake Tahoe, I'm hoping to look him up for some ski lessons because I definitely need them. I'm not very graceful on the ice. How about you, Michelle? Are you?
I try. That's it's something I really enjoy. But there's a lot of skiers who are better than me. But I'm pretty good at teaching people how to ski, so that works out.
Awesome. So today we're going to be talking about how to promote human flourishing within our teams by attempting to or ensuring that our employees' goals, their career goals, are aligned with the company's goals so that we are rowing in the same direction. Michelle, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I like you said, I live up here in Truckee, California, which is right by Lake Tahoe. I've been here for a few years. I grew up all around the world. I was born in England, and my father worked for USAID, which is an agency very much in the news this week. So that took us to Africa growing up. And along the way, I got to meet a couple of astronauts who were visiting the tracking station where I lived or close to where I lived in Madagascar. And when I was 7 years old, and got to meet them and said, this space stuff is pretty cool. Think about it; it's the '60s. Space was hot back then, just kind of like it is today. And so that at the age of 7, I knew that I wanted to do something to do with space and flying, planets, and orbits, and everything else. And so later on, as I got older, I got more into the hard sciences and engineering, and went to college and got all my degrees at MIT in astronautics. And then came out to Silicon Valley, where I worked in that sector for a while. And then I was doing a lot of software, really. I was actually building tools for other people like me, and figured out that I liked building software. I was relatively decent at it, so particularly from a management point of view. So then I embarked on a you ever see those comics in the Sunday, where the little kids kind of run around all over the place? What that cartoon is called, but it's like that's kind of my career. There's a lot of random walk, and through different software companies and networking and market research and all sorts of things. And today I'm fractional CTO for 3 different startups, and enjoy that quite a bit. So been in software for a long time.
Awesome. So what have you been reading lately? Anything you've been reading that has made an impact?
So one of the books I read not too long ago was called Weapons of Mass Destruction. And I got it right here. It's by Kathy O'Neill. And
nice.
Yeah, so it was a very interesting book because it pointed out how data, which is used all the time now in our systems, right, particularly around machine learning and AI, can introduce bias into how we treat people. And and I spent quite a bit of time actually in the data science field, and it's really interesting to read just to see like how little errors or little assumptions can completely warp the results that you get and lead to both poor decision making, but also inequity with regards to people, right? Because if you undersample a certain population in your data, then guess what? You don't represent them. and then your software does strange things when it tries to, adjust their skin tone in an image processing program, or it tries to approve them for a loan or not approve them for a loan. If you don't take into account the fact that there's a great variety in humans, and then the kind of data that you have about them, you can easily miss that and do things that are fair.
So you've been so many different things, you've worn so many different hats in your career. I love the rocket science piece. That's just so always impressive to me. People, when people want to describe something that is difficult, then they might refer to rocket science. But if they want to say that it's not something difficult at all, then they'll say this is not rocket science. And I'll bet whenever you hear that, you want to speak up and say, well,
actually, it's come up in so many companies where someone said, well, particular task is, this is not rocket science. And, well, I guess, made me then, just leave the room metaphorically. And it's like, but it's rocket science is hard, but so lots of other things, right? It's just most
Exactly.
scientific things are hard because you never spent the time to become an expert in that field. And so, for me, biology is really hard. And how drugs get delivered and how they get created and protein folding and all that stuff. I have no clue. So, so that's way harder for me than rocket science, because I know a lot about rocket science. So just depends what you learn. It's mathematically hard, but other things are hard in other dimensions.
So I want everybody to, even though we are in the presence of Michelle Floyd, and if you've never met Michelle before, now you've heard that he's had rocket science in his past, and also Michelle has worn so many hats and has been a tech leader in the space for quite a while. It might be really simple to just assume that Michelle is done making mistakes and is now superhuman, has evolved to a new level. But everybody, we don't invite superhumans on this show. We only invite regular human beings, and just to prove that Michelle truly is a human being. He does bleed when you prick him. We're gonna have confession time. So step into my confession booth. It's just you and me. Let's lay it all on the line. So what's an embarrassing mistake that you've made as a tech leader?
Well, I think I made the same mistake that every engineer who's ever built anything has made, which is to take down production. And I think those mistakes I'm still making. So taking down production is very common, and perhaps too common, particularly in small startups where you don't have a DevOps team. Processes aren't well established. So it turns out that taking down production is very easy. But I'm also really good at restoring production, so those errors hopefully don't impact too many people. Probably one of the most embarrassing ones I had was, and it's kind of a intricate story, but I was at a company where we hired a developer from another company, and the worked at a similar software company, and the other company accused us of IP theft. And basically they got together with some sheriff or some federal prosecutor up in Oregon, and started doing discovery. And so we had to do a lot of work to protect evidence and of course try to prove that we were innocent in terms of IP theft. Basically re-engineer everything. But court cases and things take a long time, and like maybe 18 months later, I'm sitting in federal court up in Portland, in front of a federal grand jury, talking about this case and defending the company position. But it turns out that in the federal grand jury, you can't have your lawyer with you. So I didn't have my attorney or the corporate attorney. I'm sitting there and answering questions, and some interesting people on that jury that asked very interesting questions. You get asked by not just the prosecutor but by jury members. And but the prosecutor at some point asked me a question, when you were doing, when you were first investigated did you, proceed to, or, did you tell your team to protect evidence, and how did you do that? Yeah, I did, but I don't remember. And the guy like pulls out a memo, which I had written, which was actually like one of the few times I wrote an official memo. Thou shalt protect evidence. He just pulls it out, shows it to me. Yeah, I guess I wrote that. It's got my signature on it, and completely forgotten about it. It was 18 months later. So here I am in court with my pants down, basically, and it's like, oh, God, I don't like grand juries because no lawyer. But that was embarrassing.
Yeah, I thank goodness I've never been in a situation where I had to be in front of a court or anything like that defending my company. But good grief, that sounds like a nightmare.
It was embarrassing after that. I mean, I got through the rest of the testimony. Okay, it's like when the guy whips out something that you wrote,
that you wrote yourself.
You completely forgot about it. Yeah, I wrote that.
Yeah, that's my signature.
Yeah, that's my signature.
It might be surprising.
It's my style,
might even be surprising to people that like, how could you forget that? Well, I've thought about 50 million things since I wrote that, so that's how I forgot it.
Exactly. So I don't think our lawyers did a particularly good job of preparing this. Should have known that evidence was coming. But the federal grand juries are different because it's not really a court case. It's very exploratory, and all sorts of funny things can come up. So I don't recommend it as an experience.
You don't recommend that. Okay, I'll take that recommendation and I'll try to apply it.
Stay out of federal court.
So tell me, what does rocket science teach us about getting our team and our company to row in the same direction?
Well, I think I grew up as a child of I was born a year after Sputnik. I grew up in the Apollo era, and I think what Apollo taught me, and I think taught a lot of people, is that you can do amazing things when you are aligned. The United States of America went to the moon and put people there, brought them back, and in a very, very short time relative to let's say how long it's taken JavaScript to mature as a platform. From the time that Werner von Braun basically told, I guess then it would have been Eisenhower, that it was possible to go to the moon, and then later on Kennedy came and said, "Well, we're going to have this big hairy ass goal of getting to the moon in by the end of the decade," in this very famous speech. And then about 6 years after that, we were walking around the moon and planting flags. That's amazing. I mean, it's just like talk about goal alignment, not just of the thousands of engineers and people who work on the Apollo program, but of the entire country being riveted to their TVs, their black and white TV sets, and with their little rabbit ear antennas, watching people land on the moon and supporting the program. That's alignment on a nationwide scale, and it delivered results in a very short amount of time relative to some of the things that we see happening now. So, if we wanted to go to the moon today, doing it in 5 to 10 years would be a challenge. It'd be hard because, first of all, you wouldn't have the public support for it. We've been there. Why are we going to the moon again? What's the real goal? And also we just don't have all of the infrastructure around to build rockets that can go to the moon easily and get people back. So, I mean, we can't even get a couple of guys back from the space station in 8 months right now who are stuck up there. So that the sense that you can do big things when you have alignment is really the summary of what Apollo taught me. And it's like, well, take that and apply it to a small team of 6 or a bigger team of about 50 or 100 or a corporation of 1,000 or 10,000. And most people dream of having that kind of alignment, of having that kind of energy behind a single goal.
So those are massive benefits to getting people to row in the same direction, be on the same page, singing the same songs. Those results, though, are kind of based on the overall outcome. We got to the moon, or we worked together to solve some problem in the company. I'm also curious though about what your take is on how this contributes to and promotes human flourishing. So we get everybody rowing together. What does that mean for the individual contributor? How can we promote human flourishing for them?
Every day when you come home from work, which today involves, going from my office to the kitchen, but, for a lot of people for a long time, it involved getting in their car, driving home and, thinking on the way, particularly during the commute times, like, what did I do today? What did I accomplish? And in corporations, a lot of times you're like, I went to a bunch of meetings, and accomplished nothing. And so the feeling of accomplishment is something that people really value. They want to do great things. I mean, people, you want a paycheck, you want your health benefits, you want a nice boss, you want career advancement, you want all these things, but you want to also accomplish things. And so that feeling of accomplishment, job satisfaction is highly, related to that. And how do you give people a sense of accomplishment? And so I think to me, it all starts with the goals. This is what we're trying to do. And, later on there's the who and the how. But the goal setting at the beginning, the goal alignment, why we're doing this, why we're doing this. Well, it's in corporations, ultimately, the challenge is, in a C Corp, you're trying to do it for the benefit of the shareholders. You're doing something that's going to make people wealthy. And most of them are not going to be you. But hopefully there's some other goal that comes with that as that you're going to build something that's useful, that's going to, help people in their daily lives. It's going to help them, get transported from A to B, or, find a doctor or whatever. There's some other thing that has got some public benefit or something that you can be proud of. Right. And
we're going to get purpose from our work from something, whether we just like the work that we're doing itself. Maybe as a craftsman, you enjoy building something that is beautiful or is sturdy. Software developer maybe gets some extra purpose from building things with a certain amount of test coverage, or that is just very flexible and maintainable. Or people get their purpose from so many different places. But what we're talking about right here is that if you align your employee career goals with the company's goals, then you might actually be able to pull that purpose from the company around you. And then once you are aligning your purpose with the purpose, then you basically have purpose on autopilot, which is probably a dream come true for a lot of people.
Yeah. It's when you went, it doesn't happen often. I mean, I've had a long career and been in a lot of teams, and having, real alignment, like, you think about software developer flow, where, you're programming, the keys are going clickety clack, and code is compiling and going to pod and working, or you're fixing a bug, and it's like, okay, that's awesome. But, when you have a whole crew, which is rowing in the same direction, and you're building something really interesting together, something that's going to help people or solve a big problem, it's just such a great feeling, right? And it's rare. It doesn't happen in, maybe it happens 1 out of 10 projects, right? And so when you get it, boy, you gotta row hard and just love it. But trying to get close to that, or trying to get there is worthwhile for an engineering leader and for a team. It's like, if you can build that, you will get much more than you bargained for in terms of.
So what have you seen happens when employees' goals are not aligned with their company goals?
Well, that's unfortunately a very common case, right? And the challenge, I think, is that companies and humans or the employees evolve, right? The company starts at one thing and it evolves into a different thing, and it evolves later on into another thing. It gets bigger, it has more customers, it pivots, it does an acquisition. And the engineers come along the line, first, I'm fresh out of college. I want to write cool software. I want my code to be beautiful. And then it's like, well, I want to do something, impactful in the world. But it's like, oh, but now it's, I'm at the age where I want to get married and have kids. And so I need more income and I need more free time to take care of the kids or, to be a parent who's actually there. So your life evolves and of course your interest evolves. You started programming in one language and that language becomes obsolete. I was listening to one of your podcasts earlier where, someone was working in cold fusion, right? Which is not something that is taught in college anymore. And, so,
right.
So somewhere, you start out as a cold fusion developer and then later on you become a JavaScript developer. And then they throw TypeScript at you and then someone says, well, you better learn Rust and go. And, so you're always changing. And your relationship with your peers is changing. You're becoming more of an adult, more of a contributor to society. So you change, and the company changes. And the people who went to Google, when Google was young and naive, and they said, their main value was don't be evil. And those people pretty much either they changed and became, raging capitalists, or they left, right, because they couldn't deal with the amount of evil that was necessary to become very financially successful, and part of the package. So people change and companies change.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you
part of what.
Yeah, go ahead.
Part of what we're talking about is actually aligning our why also, because I have my own why, my thing that drives me, the thing that gets me up in the morning, which is my alarm, but it's also the thing that wakes me up to be happy to go to work, my why. And then the company has a why, which is the reason for that company to exist, the change that it's making in the world or whatever. And I think that leaders, tech leaders would say that they want to align their employees' values or their employees' goals with the company's goals and align those whys. But I think that there are plenty that don't. And so I'm wondering from you, why do you think that more leaders don't spend time on the why?
I think it's the great, one of the great missing pieces in management is being clear about the why. In some corporations, particularly, as they get larger, the why becomes less and less clear. And I don't, even begin to tell you how many meetings I've come out of where the engineers have gone, why are we doing this? And it's a simple question. Why are we doing this? And then when the why is not explained, people start, being creative about what the why might be, right? It's like, well, the why appears to be that, the boss, the pointy hair manager in the C-suite is, wants to, advance his career or wants to, gain political clout inside the corporation. So we're doing this basically, so that person can advance. There's not necessarily, a company goal around it. There's a fiefdom that's being created, or it's like, why are we doing this project? Is because one of the worst ones is, well, there isn't a better idea right now, so we're doing this just to make sure that people are busy because the big bosses don't want to see people sitting around on their hands. They want to see them clickety clack at the keyboard, 10 hours a day. And so you got to look busy. So we're doing this project because, we got to look busy. That comes up so many times, and it's quite, it's funny, but it's also tragic because, the engineers are by and large pretty smart at figuring out, what the real why might be. And when, the why isn't good, then cynicism creeps in and they start looking around and, listen, maybe I should be doing something else. If the why, if they can't get behind the why, and the why is some, arbitrary, noose that's been put around their neck, then they're going to try to find a way to escape. So getting the why is just so important. It's like, that's where the motivation comes from. Why are we doing this, right? And why is this cause worth following? Why are we going to the moon? Well, because the Russians, we don't want the Russians to get first. They're first. That was the number one reason why we went to the moon, to avoid the Russians getting there first. Number two was, okay, putting a man on the moon is cool, but getting there before the Russians was the big because of the Russian fear at the time. And, so you got to have your being explicit about your why and making sure that your why is something that that aligns with your values. And that's not just, turf building or turf war with somebody else or passing the time kind of thing. Then, that gets people going. And, it builds trust. If you're explicit about it, about what the why is, and like, oh yeah, I understand why we're doing this. And, I want to do this because this is, I can get behind that why. The how we'll figure out.
Yeah. The how will eventually come along and present itself if your why is clear. So imagine that. Sorry, go ahead.
No.
Imagine that we are now talking to a room full of tech leaders who have already said, we want to do this. We want to spend time and invest in whatever effort it takes to align our employee career goals with our company goals. We want to get everybody rowing in the same direction. We want everybody singing the same song. What do you think tech leaders who are kind of starting to go down this road often overlook when they're in the process of implementing and changing?
Well, it starts with hiring, right? And hiring well and hiring people that are not hiring just based on skills, but hiring based on career arc and your corporate arc. Like this, when you software projects last, months, sometimes years. Careers last, or tenures with companies last, 2, 3, 5, 10 years, maybe more, and rarely more, but sometimes they can. And so that every engineer that you hire is going to do different things. They might work for you for a while. They might work for somebody else. They might grow inside the corporation, and you have to. When you hire someone, you have to make sure that they're going to be around, for a long time. You're going to invest in them. You're going to train them. You're going to teach them all the secrets, and pick them in the company mission and values, and making sure that you're hiring someone who isn't just, good at typing out JavaScript on the keyboard, TypeScript, Go or Rust or whatever, but that, really wants to be at your company and wants to be there through its ups and downs, and through its pivots and its changes. That's those are interview questions, and those are soft questions, right? Soft human touch questions that you need to be asking, not just, people spend so much time on coding, coding tests and coding games or whatever, and they spend very little time on, is this person really want to be here, right? And that's to me, it's just as important. And because later on, you're going to have to tell these people to you have to get them to do things that are interesting and valuable, and then you want to make sure that when you tell them why, that they're like, yeah, that's why I'm here, is to do those kinds of things, and not like, why like this doesn't fit at all.
Yeah, so much easier to work with people who already share your values and are already hungry to go in the same direction as everybody else.
Yeah, exactly.
It is a nightmare to work with people when we are not, and from the very beginning, they weren't going to row in the same direction, and now we're kind of stuck working with them, and we might have to let them go, which is also excruciating, just because we didn't hire right. Yeah. So I really appreciate your point.
Yeah. So it starts with hiring, and then sometimes it's there are better roles, within other teams, or even maybe within other functions inside the company where I think a common career arc for engineers is you start as an engineer and you're coding stuff, and you're doing tech support, you're doing things like that, and you're very technical, but you also, by some miracle, happen to have people skills, and next thing you know, you're in product marketing, right? So and then you grow from there. Just noticing a friend on LinkedIn the other day. He started out in tech support. He came out of Berkeley, and started in tech support in my first company. Very smart, and then then the next thing you know, he's in product marketing. He's doing demos. He's doing pre-sales, basically. Then he's doing many other things around the product side of the company. And today he's a CEO of a company, in Silicon Valley. In fact, he's been CEO of several different companies. It's like, yeah, well, that career arc is not, he didn't become the chief architect or the CTO of a company. He became a CEO of another company. And the best thing for him was, based on his personality and people skills, was not to sit there and code. It was to do other things, because he had way more leverage and alignment with being, going into product and to management. And so just, it's you never know what people are going to be.
I'll bet you've seen this process go well and maybe even go badly in the past. Can you share a time when aligning employee and company goals led to some sort of unexpected outcomes?
Yeah, it's funny. Like, when they're misaligned, bad outcomes. Just like that's the. I mean, when you look at companies that have, or projects, or initiatives that had problems, 9 times out of 10 you can trace it back to misalignment on goals. Right? We weren't really doing the thing that needed to be done. We weren't aligned on what it was that we were doing. The people were had the skills but not the motivation. So and there's too many of those stories they go into, and then sometimes it's the other way around, where and sometimes you have engineers who are sitting around and are lacking in there's not a developed product management function, and so they're kind of wondering, well, I finished building this thing, what should I build next? And so some of the best surprises I've had is like, well, ideally we'd have a product manager with spec and project board and a bunch of a backlog, and we would put you on that. But right now we don't have one because that guy left, or that woman left, and so we're down on a product manager. And so, but we have this problem where with these customers that are we're losing them in the onboarding stage, or losing them some kind of flow somewhere. And we don't really know how to solve that. Could you go take a look at that? And that's the first part of that is like, well, what's the goal? Is to solve this problem that the customers have, and what's the solution? I don't know. Is it important? Yes, it's important, because we're losing 10% of our funnel to this problem, and go figure it out. And or why don't you take a look at that, and with a kind of an open agenda. And I've had great results with that. Like, the engineers come up with all sorts of creative solutions to these problems. They dig in there, they look at the data, they understand it, they start asking questions about, well, why did they stop? They're stopping here at step 2.5, and they're leaving there. Why is that? What's on that page? And they go and they'll figure it out. Even if the really smart ones, the really flexible ones, just like take a vague mission statement and go off and build something interesting. And maybe it doesn't make it production, and maybe it's prototype, and maybe it's enough to get someone else excited that, hey, this is a project that maybe we should put more resources in, because it has potential.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Maybe even gave some ownership to that that contributor.
Yeah, it's like, hey, you want to build a team around this, because now it turns out, the industry is rife with stories like that. Just given, kind of a goal that they were, that they thought was interesting, and a rough, description of the problem. Really good engineers will go after that, and sometimes they invent, things that you have no idea, you had no clue that they were going to invent. That turned out to be great, right? And other engineers, maybe they want to be more regimented. They go down the Kanban board and pick off the next ticket. Right? That's but you have all kinds.
Michelle, if there's one thing that tech leaders should do tomorrow to promote team flourishing, what do you think it should be?
This thing that I used to do every day at this one company where I worked was, I asked the engineers to repeat back what our goals were, like in the project. or for the company at that time, it was kind of a restart, and gone through some troubled times. So we had 5 goals that the company was after, right? And I would just ask them to repeat, what are the 5 goals that we're working on? Turns out 5 is too many because no one can remember 5. It's a little bit like the cognitive test where you have to remember, banana, apple, turnip or whatever. But it's like, just getting them to repeat the goals. And then it was funny when you come back at the goals and you're like, man, that's not quite the goal. It's kind of, it's kind of a paraphrase for that. Oh, that's not a goal at all, right? This is a non-goal. And just having to echo back of, like as a manager, as a leader, you're trying to communicate a message, we want to go here. And then it's like, oh, where are we going? Let's just check back. And it's like, where are we going? Or, why are we doing this? And having the engineers repeat that back to you in their words, right? Because they're always paraphrased. And it's just kind of figure out just like how much of your message is getting through and how much of it is getting lost in translation. Particularly if it's an indirect, right? An indirect report where, you've set the goal to the manager or to your director or line manager. And you happen to be in a room with one of the engineers and it's like, what are the goals of this project? And, a lot of times the engineers that are, 1 or 2 layers, skip levels down from you, they can't tell you. And then you realize, okay, now I've got, it's like the old telephone tag game. I've got a problem because the message isn't making it through down to the engineer who really needs to be motivated.
Yeah.
And so check, just like, is that, and the goals, simple, clear, and it's amazing how much they get lost in translation. So check, just like, are people really aligned? And you ask them, you don't have to ask them, are you aligned? Just like, what do you think the goals are? And they'll tell you in their words, and then you'll know like how far, how much has been lost.
Something so simple, but it's powerful because once you get people to either admit that they know or they don't, or you hear the nuances of their response, and now what kind of changes you need to make to get people aligned, and then you get to start reaping the benefits of the productivity increase of the alignment that you get, and also I can totally see how people would start flourishing. Just by that simple question from a tech leader. Great advice. Michelle, how can people get in touch with you or connect with you?
Oh, I'm easy to find. I'm on LinkedIn. My email is my name, basically. So michellefloyd.com. And, but the LinkedIn is good. Just don't try to sell me things on the first date, just.
Yeah. I'll include your link in the show notes so that people can get on there and not sell you stuff.
But book a ski lesson with me. That's also a good thing.
Ooh, okay.
And then,
actually, I wouldn't mind.
I had a bunch of Google engineers or a couple of Google engineers on a ski lesson in a group, and we were talking about self-driving cars and how impossible it was going to be to get cars to drive in snow, or self-driving cars to drive in snowstorms. But it's fun. That's if you're up in the Truckee area and want to learn how to ski, then come ski with me and then we can talk about it.
What would make me a better skier? Self-driving skis.
Yeah. We'll work on
that. Hey, Michelle, thank you so much for your time. It's been a great discussion. I can't wait to see what kind of improvements to the world come out because of this discussion. So we'll do this again. See you next time.
All right. Thank you so much.
This has been another episode of the Team Amplifier podcast. Thanks for joining us. Now, get out there and be a team amplifier.